Hello everyone and welcome to a very quick update in the world of Project Ruby. How is Ruby getting on? Well, she's okay. She's standing out there in the cold. Meanwhile, I'm in the warm and I've been working really hard. And there has been a lot of work done since the last video. And I'm going to update you on exactly what has gone on. And I'll show you a few bits of what I'm currently getting up to while I'm in the mood to do a little film for you guys. So, without ado, we have a lovely rebuilt Cylinder head. Oh boy, yes. Ruby is going to have some flow and power. She certainly will be, because everything has come on time and it's gone back together like Lego. The diligence has been done in cleaning it and making sure everything is good. Now, like I said in the last episode, I was awaiting several parts and expensive ones. We have fitted a brand new camshaft straight in the middle here, okay, with new valve stem seals, which have gone in very nicely. And I've used my spring compressor tool to properly put the valve springs back in where they came, exactly which area they came from, by just using the numbers in the packages like I showed you, just to make sure the springs go back exactly where they used to go, including the rockers as well. All the fixings have gone back exactly where they went the last time. I've put new hydraulic tappets straight in, and I can honestly say a bit of lubrication, they will make a noise on startup. The first startup is going to sound horrendous. It's going to be stressful for me. I'm going to have butterflies in my stomach because so much of this has been disturbed top and bottom of this engine that I really, even though with most diligent work that I've been doing to make sure everything is right, if it's not right, why is it not right? Go back and start again. That's my attitude to this kind of work. You do it once, you do it properly. And I think even with that, there's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be heat because the piston rings are going to be breaking in. The exhaust is going to get hot. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. And the tappets are going to make an awful sound, like I've got no oil pressure, because they need to build up the pressure. It will happen eventually, but it won't happen immediately. And my experience of hydraulic tappets is they never quite shut up on the first startup. Then when you shut the engine off, let it cool for a couple of hours, start it up, and they'll be silent. That's the way I don't know why, there's a scientific reason why and how these hydraulic lifters work. They are amazing. They've got little valleys and gullies, and they are superb at what they do. The only reason they went from hydraulic to solid is cheaper, and secondly, people weren't changing the oil, so the tappets were a bit gunked up, which defeats the point in them. We painted the crankshaft wheel on this side. Excuse me, where is my torch gone? Just reached my torch. That's a bit better. Yeah, we just painted it up and it's been torqued up to spec, which is I think about 60 Newton meters. And I had to get a punch to sort of hold the tool. I was going to just get the gun, but I'm trying to torque things up when I can. So I got a little chisel and just held it against the block here and then torqued up using the spanner. It was actually using the torque wrench. It was actually quite an easy thing to torque up. 60 Newton meters isn't a ridiculous amount. But yeah, the inner manifold is back on, and I've attached what I need to attach. And Ruby's had a lot of parts go back on the engine outside, just hoses and cooling system, just everything that I need to just make sure that I've done a lot of my work already, and it's all been cleaned and ready to go back on, and all the fixings are over there ready to be administered when necessary, and we are really good to go. All these springs are sitting really nicely. The rockers are looking excellent. I mean, it looks amazing, amazingly clean. And it's nice to just appreciate this being on the bench, because this will never, hopefully, have to come back into a house or a shop ever again, hopefully. But you never know. It's one of them things with classic cars if they get to an age. I just bolted the fuel pump back on. I've made sure the push rod is working. I've spun the camshaft a few times to make sure everything was good, and it was good, and we were getting some friction, and then it was going loose, and then friction, then loose. That's the normal feeling you'll get when turning a camshaft, because the springs, you're working against the springs, and then when the springs release, boom, you'll get that looseness, and then it will go tight when you're forcing yourself against the springs. It's pretty simple, really. And all the valve seats are sealed in. There is no light coming from my torch through the inlet ports through the other side, which means we have a perfect seal. Now, the only way of doing that really professionally is by taking that to a machine shop and having it confirmed that it holds pressure. Anyone can do that. I might just take it back to my machine shop. I've got plenty of time, but this is rebuilt. It's going to be, I was a bit hesitant at putting this inlet manifold on, but I wanted to do it on the bench, in situ, in here, so I'm not doing it on the car. But it does mean that I've got to be extra careful when lifting this onto the engine block, because it's going to be heavy. I am not heavy. I'm not a strong person. I'm not a strong person at all, so I have to be very careful. Watch your back. Anyway, I have had a few things come. So obviously we've had everything come that needs to come. New camshaft, new tappets, new studs, because we were waiting on these studs. These are brand new, genuine Ford studs. I bought 8 of them for £62. Yep. If you think that's expensive, go to Burton's. They want 10 quid per one. Not doing that. So it's been rebuilt properly, and everything that I don't like has come off and been replaced. There is absolutely no point in start nitpicking and trying to cut corners where you shouldn't be cutting corners. If it may have caused an issue with the oil burning, which has led to the oil burning, then these studs had to be replaced, every single one of them. And that was thanks to that awful tool by Sealy. And plenty of people have done this job without an issue. I don't know why. I did it by hand, didn't use an impact gun at all or anything like that. I did it by the book, and all these studs were bent by that frigging Sealy. It was the Sealy CVH valve spring compressor tool, the one that I used in that episode. Wow, what sort of damage that did, I don't know. But as you saw, the damage to those castings was very evident that I have either had a bad tool, or it's not a very good tool in the first place. So I'd recommend you take the head off on a CVH to do your valve stem seals. So yeah, that's my advice. Anyway, enough about the head. That head is complete and ready to go back on the car. I'm so pleased. The other bit now that I'm coming to, the engine is prepared. It is ready. We're awaiting piston rings at the moment. They are due to come. That's number 4. And as you can see, I've been fitting some bearings. We've got some King engine bearings. This pack cost me £25. I'll just bring that around. I have been using this stuff, engine assembly lube. I've been lubing everything, the cam lobes, everything. Engine assembly lube. I had to lube the whole camshaft, every single lobe. This contains a lot of zinc, okay? It's everything you need for that first startup when things, even with a bit of oil, are going to be dry. And you must apply it to these bearings. Now I'm just going to I've just put a little bit on, just a tiny bit on, but I'm not going to put too much on because I'm going to pre-lube it along with the crank. Because we want to make sure that we are not dry in any department that needs to be oiled. And this, I'd tell you what, zinc, ZDDP, this is full of. Okay, this is the stuff you do use. All engine builders will use this kind of stuff. ZDDP has been slowly eliminated from engine oils for over a period of decades. It used to be... Engine oils back in the day used to be rich with ZDDP because it prevented dry starts on engines that didn't really contain the oil at the top of the engine. A lot of old classic cars suffer from that. P6 4-cylinder engines, they are very bad for dry starts, and you need ZDDP, which coats everything. This stuff will coat everything in a special film of zinc, and that is what is required for that initial startup to prevent dry starts. Unfortunately, engine oil manufacturers have eliminated it because of environmental concerns. You can still buy ZDDP as an additive, but it's very expensive. I think Miller's is the best classic car oil to use that, but with a lot of the cars that I use, it's less necessary because CVH's, Sigma's, Z-Tech's, K-Series engines, anything like that I tend to have a hand on, don't need it, not as much. But when you're rebuilding one, yes you do. Absolutely. And all I'm doing is I'm pressing the new bearings into place. And it is really simple. You have one bearing for the top half and one for the top. I've got to take these two bits off anyway, because I can't have that on there when I drop the piston in and compress the springs and just give it a tap in. Hopefully I'll show you that on camera. I want to show you some of the more sort of exciting bits. But I just thought I'd share you some knowledge really on what I'm doing. Make sure the oil hole is lined up. And look, we've got a hole. Yeah, we have. We've got a bit of a hole. Is it? Yep. Yep, that oil hole is good. It's not blocked in any sense. Blow it out. I've just got the air tool just to blow a line through. Make sure the bolts going where they came back out. You can reuse these. It's not a problem. People buy all sorts of ARP bolt sets. Oh yeah, sure. Because I've got another £100 to spend on that after spending hundreds on the rest of it. You can reuse these. It's not a problem. I've been told that by 2 different people now. But we have got the original home marks on these bearing caps and on the con rod on the other side. But I've just slipped the bearing into place, and all you have to do is I've just coated it just in a little bit of this stuff. There we go. It's very sticky stuff, this assembly lube. It's good. Just make sure that the notch lines up there and you're good, and make sure the hole isn't blocked or anything like that, and you're absolutely fine. I'll just take another one of these bearing caps out and just make sure that this surface is clean. Now, all these caps come with holes, but the bottom one doesn't need a hole, because obviously that hole there on the back side just here is sort of entry for the oil to come in and lubricate the whole thing, the top and bottom, so the oil will just work its way around as the crank spins. So the oil circulates and on the bearings that way. So it's crucial that hole is not blocked. If that hole is blocked, you have got problems. You are going to seriously wreck your bearings. It's that important. So we're just going to slide this in. There's no real rule for doing this, but just make sure that the notch lines up. Come on. I just had to put the camera down there. That was important. So there we go. The notch is lined up and it's sitting nice and true. Now, there is an important thing actually to note. When I put all this together and I'm torquing these bolts back up, these 2 halves of this bearing will crush together. There is a little bit of crush at the end of the bearing to make sure it's a perfectly tight seal between the 2 faces. Believe it or not, that bearing is actually a little bit longer than the length of that bearing cap and this con rod half circle, the bearing surface, because that is designed, it's absolutely something of a foul. It's absolutely minuscule, but it's designed to crush the shell just a little bit, which is why generally when you take these caps off and take the bearing cap off, you can do that just to check the state of the bearings, but what you've done there is you've uncrushed that seal. That seal's already been crushed, and you can't re-crush it by putting it back on and re-torquing and, oh yeah, my bearing's fine. You can't really do that. You can't do that, which is why I kind of was against just checking the bearings and the mains bearings, because you disturb the mains bearings, just like the big end bearings. These are con rod big end bearings, they're known as. It will be the same result. You'll basically, they can't be crushed again and they won't have that same seal. So generally when you do this, the only time this is coming back off again is if there's a serious problem and you have to change them again. You can change big end bearings in situ. You just have to push the piston off the crank and try and just loop this out, and obviously you can do this on the floor, it doesn't really matter, but you just have to push the piston up further enough off the crank, change the shell, push the new one on, lubricate it and push it back on the crank. So you can do big ends in situ, you can do mains in situ. It's not, it's not a big deal unless you're removing the pistons like I am. So there you go. I'm just going to finish off and do the rest of them, but they're all complete like this. So yeah, again, another job, another box ticked, and I will have all these done. I will have the rings on as well on these on these pistons. The rings will be nice. I'll just recheck the rings. I will also check the bore using one of the new rings. I've got to gap the rings. It's simple. You put the piston ring in the cylinder it's going to go in. You get your feeler gauge and you look at the clearances in the book, And if the clearances are too tight, you have to shave a bit. You have to sand a little bit very gently on that edge, because we don't want the piston rings becoming too close, because they can't expand. And when they can't expand and they're touching each other, oh, you're going to snap the rings. The engine will be turning over and suddenly, bam, ring snaps. You have to set the ring gaps. There is a gap there for a reason, to allow for expansion. That's the top tip with that one. But anyway, that's for another episode on assembling. That may well be the next episode, because, as I say, I'm just giving you important updates and just showing you. Simply, it is a case of check, clean, refit, check, clean, refit. It's a simple case of doing things over and over again and looking at things, because I don't want to be standing there and Ruby's making some sort of weird noises coming from not the tappets but somewhere else lower down, and I'm scratching my head going, did I check this? Did I check that? And you have to know in your own head, no, I definitely checked that. There's nothing wrong with what I've done. You have to know these things, and you have to be in your mindset, I have done everything I can possibly do. And that's the important thing. You can only do what you can only do within the knowledge and your scope of knowledge. At the end of the day, I know most of what there is to know about doing something basic like this. And it is basic, because it is just inspection. And you get to know how your car works. That's what I've learned from all of this, more or less. The little tiny things that engine builders will just spot, and it's like breakfast and tea to them, whereas to me, it's all new and learning experiences. Anyway, take care, guys. I shall see you very soon.